Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar at Product School. My name is Eric. I'm happy to present on the topic of UX product managers' impact on driving product-led growth. Customers these days have countless options when it comes to products that serve similar purposes, such as messaging apps. It doesn't cost any money to download for the users, or it never goes on sale or promotions or anything, but you choose to use one product over another. So does music streaming services. Apple Music and Spotify, they both offer similar contents in terms of songs and albums, yet customers find themselves drawn to one product over another. What would set them apart? Of course, there are business-led decisions such as exclusive contents and sales and promotions to sign up. These are all key contributors. But I believe that distinguishing user experience of a product is also a big impact on letting users choose one product over another. So a well-crafted user experience definitely can be a key driver in successful user adoption of the product. But what does product managers exactly do in this process? Is it mostly just product designers that actually drives these changes? In this webinar, I would love to share what exactly is the role of product managers in shaping these experiences in the user experience side. Before we begin, I would love to briefly introduce myself. I'm a product manager with background in e-commerce and entertainment vertical, with history of launching product features in both big tech companies as well as startups. I'm currently based in Tokyo after pursuing my product career in California for over 7 years. I'm also very passionate about mentoring and educating aspiring product managers by sharing my knowledge and insights. I've been regularly serving as an instructor and speaker in organizations like Japan Product Camp and my alma mater, USC Marshall. Over the course of my career, I've had an opportunity to work on a wide range of product launches, both UX facing and non-US related features, in hope of course, making a big impact on the user adoption. However, my own experience, it's been consistently proven that implementing any changes in the UI UX was definitely the most significant impact on the user adoption and growth, and it has shown in the data in a quantifiable way multiple times. Impact of my role as a UX product manager became a lot more clear to me. It was sort of an aha moment when I launched something called GameHub on Fire TV, Amazon Smart TV. It was basically sort of a new UI that simplified the game discovery and launches of gaming contents on Smart TV. So in my household, these gaming contents were always accessible through other means, such as the separate app on Fire TV or through a gaming consoles like Nintendo Switch. But the new interface made a significant impact on first-time user adoption, such as the traditional non-gamers. And my wife, who's not really into gaming, became interested in adopting cloud gaming with this new interface. So seeing how a change and improvement in the UX with the same exact content broadened the user adoption and transformed the way people actually interact with the TVs, it was a powerful testament of the influence of product management and user experience on user adoption. I have to admit that the definition of product management is so diverse. I really enjoyed watching one of the fellow product school speaker session recently, where the speaker Victoria talked about listed over 30 definitions and categories of types of PMs, which I can't relate more with. I don't think the term product manager, there's a set definition or, depending on the company or even within the organizations within the same company, it can be so diverse. But for the purpose of today's session, I would like to sort of have an oversimplification of the categories of product managers into just two different buckets. We'll focus on UX product managers versus non-UX product managers. These are UX product managers that we'll be focusing on in today's webinar is basically the PMs that works directly on user experiences, such as customers, and some of their key responsibility and keywords would be including user testing and users, wireframing and prototypings. And there are a lot of other product managers that makes impact on the products in the means other than the ones that are mentioned on the left. Often best way to describe product managers is not by a job title or job description, which can be very misleading sometimes. But I do believe it's the stakeholders that product managers work with. Product managers, of course, typically work with a variety of stakeholders, such as engineering and other product managers, business stakeholders, and data team. But I would like to define UX product managers as the PMs who basically work with the UX team. This is pretty straightforward. It becomes pretty straightforward this way. While all PMs influence UX to some degree, UX PMs are basically the ones that have a deeper involvement in the UI design process by working more closely with the UX team. So I think the most critical role of UX product manager is actually problem selection and prioritization. This involves basically defining what problems to solve and why that problem is important to solve through UX. Let me just throw out some random examples. As a user, you open up one of your favorite social media app, TikTok, and you notice there's new UI, new features that were added. While as an end users, it's easy to appreciate, oh, there's a shopping feature on TikTok. User as a UI, a UX product managers, you tend to ask so many like why questions, like in each of these UX changes. So PMs are trained to like questions like what are the customer problems that TikTok was trying to solve by adding this feature? Is if it's about helping customers get to shopping experience easier, like or influencers to be able to sell more products, could they have done it other way, like putting in external links, or did they have to really build this? And if building this was actually aligned to their internal goals, how were they able to balance the right CX for converting users to this new shopping experience to drive revenue versus keeping the customers engaged in their traditional stronghold of short form video contents, which will generate ads revenue for the company in a significant way. So PMs have to be not just thinking about the new UX, but always has to think about diverse stakeholders to identify the most powerful, impactful customer problems and then balance it with the business goal. It really comes down to the scope difference. UX designers, UX teams, and product managers, of course, share the commitment of addressing customer pain points and improving user experience of a product. But product manager's scope is a little bit wider in a sense that we also have to consider a broader spectrum of factors such as internal goals and business cases and basically objectives. And sometimes before we even begin thinking about what's the right UX to solve this, we also have to critically think like, is building something necessary? Can a non-tech solution basically address the same customer pain points? Because one of the key responsibility of PM is ensuring that every resources of the team is used efficiently. And if there's a non UX solution to actually solve the same problem, maybe that's actually a better way to go about it. And then we also have to, because we at the end of the day we have to align on what's the high impact initiative for everyone to continue and everyone to build together, everyone on the team to build together. PMs and UX are usually in sync with sort of, addressing the customer pain points through backlogs and product roadmaps, wish list of things that they want to build. But when it comes to PMs actually have to go a little bit beyond and think about business opportunities, as well as sort of the engineering bandwidth and technical feasibility. While the UX team tends to focus on the first half, the PMs have to focus on not just the first half, but all four aspects of product prioritization. And then the impact of the UX improvement has to be quantifiable and measurable. If impact is not measurable, there is basically no impact. Sometimes impact is really obvious, but most often, sometimes the UX can be seen as someone's preference versus an opinion. So, in order to launch a UX and drive sort of the team's agenda, it is very important that, UX has to be, the impact of the UX change has to be quantifiable. It's data or dust, but, PMs are aligned with the UX that, the new user experience brings value. PMs have to be committed to basically support that US decision with some sort of data, whether it's KPI monitoring or you roll out as an A/B test or you do a post-launch deep dive analysis to really quantify the impact of the team and basically sort of communicate that win with the rest of the team. On a day-to-day basis, PMs are actually not a designer or artist, but PMs are actually a writer when it comes to their contribution of UX. This may be slightly disappointing, but yeah, I mean, PMs basically are a writer who translate user needs into a clearly written requirement. One of the reasons is UX team is really actually a team of specialists and experts with really a diverse skill set. It's not just a UX designer who basically uses their skills in UX design to design an amazing user interface, but design system designers who basically builds components and patterns and guidelines so they can build UX in a scalable way. And UX writer who's basically sort of responsible for every single micro copies and written content on the product, as well as creative designers who basically designs the visual designs on the product and of course, UX researchers who conduct scientific user research so to understand user behavior and pain points, etc. So it would be unreasonable to expect product managers to keep up with this level of specialization in the UX team. Instead, PMs play like a crucial role in the UX by documenting requirements that addresses these pain points. These typically involves creating sort of user stories and acceptance criteria as part of a product requirement doc. And then, so in this way, PMs can focus on their core responsibility while respecting UX teams' sort of expertise and skill sets. In summary, product managers don't directly create UI design, but we define key user problems and partner closely with the UX team to craft an effective requirement document. Once product managers and teams are aligned on which problems are worth solving, it becomes more about collaboration of what is the right UX to solve given the constraints the team is faced with or will be facing in the future. As I mentioned, I currently live in Tokyo, which in my opinion has the best public transportation system in the world. This means that even simple commute from home to office I have to deal with, having to choose what's the best route for me within in six different options. As a user, my customer need is that I want to go home or go to the office as fast as possible. And Google Maps are pretty helpful in suggesting routes that actually calculates the shortest travel distance. But every day I'm faced with choosing the best route within constraints like I have, which is I'm so tired after a long day of work etc. So Google Maps suggestions don't always capture the nuances that, can impact my customer pain points as well as constraints that I have in my journey. So for example, like this route has the shortest travel time, but it's usually the busiest train. So I'll be standing up through the whole way of 46 minutes one way. The second route would be least transfer, zero stop, but I mean, this also involves me walking from the station to the office. And then that could be really painful, especially in a really hot summer or cold winter or rainy days. This route takes the longest time, appears to take the longest time, so it's not Google Maps best suggestion, but this is actually the least busiest train. So I can actually sit down through my journey. And also as an added bonus, it takes the least resource, aka the travel cost. So I can save a little bit of money and it adds up over the course of a month or a year. As a PM, when I discover a new UX, I always think of what is the constraints that the team had to work with. For example, I thought it was really interesting to see Netflix's approach on how to solve the problem of getting a game controller in their hands of the users. When they recently rolled out cloud gaming services as part of their subscription of Netflix, rather than physical game controllers, they released a standalone smartphone app that turns their phone into a virtual controller. This approach is a little bit different from some of the other cloud gaming services provider that supports and sold physical game controllers in the past. Product team at Netflix probably had to consider like what is the most optimal user experience to this brand new selection of contents to existing Netflix users while dealing with the constraints such as they don't want to have to sell a hardware of physical game controllers, and they probably had some difficulties utilizing their existing Netflix app, which is not intended for gameplay experiences. And also they probably had to, think about the speed to market on how fast they want to actually roll out the contents to move with the development cost development. So they probably had to come up with some compromises of a dedicated but separate app for users to have to download from the App Store. Such as this, product managers are sort of uniquely positioned to identify and address constraints that can impact user experience, UX decisions, which sometimes may lead to some compromises in the decision-making process. The visibility to constraints come from PMs being sort of the center of these stakeholders. PMs have to sort of synthesize information from not just UX team, but engineering, legal, finance, operations, biz dev, and of course, the roadmap from the other PMs. So while working with the UX team, PMs can provide valuable context about the constraint that comes from different stakeholders, and sometimes bear of a not so exciting news on why the most innovative UI UX decision may not be suitable for what they want to build now. It also comes from the visibility to constraint also comes from PMs in being involved in all stages of product cycles. Here's yet another very, very oversimplified view of product development journey. While the UX team is involved in the first half of sort of the product development cycle, product requirement and UX design process, PMs are involved in PM's involvement continues to all the way through engineering sprints to roll out, go to market, and impact measurement. So this is yet another reason why PMs can have more visibility to the constraints and provide a valuable context to the UX team about these constraints. Once the product managers and their teams are aligned on which problems to solve, it's PMs are really about communicate of these constraints to UX team, and then that communication just doesn't end in the initial design stage as we discover more stuff along the development process. So that's why I think tools like Figma, which enables like very seamless real-time feedback and comments across the dev team and the UX team, has been so essential. Last but not least, PM's job is to really formulate the long-term vision of the UX. I personally believe that this is actually the biggest contribution that PMs make to the UX process. Even when it appears that folks are aligned on which problems to solve, or folks should be aligned, it's very obvious and clear. There's still a lot of remaining obstacle to bring that into reality as a user experience to customers' hand. Now, like I have been asked, like, is PMs really the mini CEO, like some folks on the internet says? Unfortunately, my reality of a PM has been quite different from a CEO. CEOs usually can tell other coworkers or team members with an authority. Product managers, we're always the one that's convincing people around them. We have to persuade our stakeholders without the authority of a CEO, which means that PMs are actually more closer to salesperson than a mini CEO. We have to sort of build consensus around persuasion and sales skills, salesmanship. So yeah, I mean, PMs spend a significant portion of their time selling their product vision to various stakeholders. We just don't sell cars. We just sell the idea of building the cars so the company can sell to the customers. Let's say that you have this amazing idea of building an industry disruptive car and you're convinced this is the future for your company and organizations, but selling this kind of a Northstar vision is always an uphill battle because you're always going to face a significant resistance from a variety of stakeholders. Because even at startups, nimble startups to big tech companies alike, I often UX team and the product managers often struggle with engineering resources when trying to execute on their grand vision into a real functioning products. And because you often face the dilemma of like if the vision of the product is not something big and game changing, then it's hard to get a stakeholder buy-in. It's just not interesting and just not going to be something that will be interested in working on. But if the vision is something that is going to take a long time to launch, without a quick win in a foreseeable future, you also will have a difficulty getting stakeholders buy-in. People need to put something on their performance evaluation and want to launch stuff along the way of along the way of their product progress. See, the art of UX product management lies in sort of balancing the North Star vision with some immediate user and business goals. And usually this is achieved by solving the lower hanging fruit through the development of MVPs, minimum viable products, just enough features to satisfy the early adopters. And a good product manager should be able to come up with MVPs that serves both purposes. One, uh, you know, solves the immediate user needs, while two, sort of lays a scalable foundation for the future growth and the long-term vision of the product. So the challenge is really coming up with MVP that's not just quicker to build and easier to build, but that effectively validates the market assumptions and demonstrate progress towards the larger vision. If we create the right MVP that can be delivered in a quicker term, but it has to be something that the insights that can be gathered is something that is representative of the long-term potential of the product. One realization I came to me was that as a salesman of a product vision, you have to actually believe the idea yourself. At the end of the day, I mean, this is human working with human, human convincing another human. You have to be genuinely interested and passionate, and that can be contagious. There are so many great ideas coming from, talented product managers within your organization that is in your product backlogs. So there's as a PM, you have, if as a PM, also if you are the PM, doesn't matter who started the idea, you are the face of the idea. So regardless of its origin, you have to be representing the idea. And then if you're not passionate about the idea yourself, it can be dragging. And stakeholders will have a hard time actually buying into the process, in addition to the limited resources they have to deal with. So in doing so, product managers should prepare like a compelling, visually engaging narrative that resonates with the stakeholders to bring the North Star vision so they can clearly see what we are talking about. In product manager's head, the bridge between this MVP and the North Star vision may be very clear, but it may not be clear to the stakeholders. So how do we bridge this gap is once again sort of the UX mocks and UX representation for that Northstar vision. Even a docs heavy company like my current employer to my previous employer, where it was much, much more presentation heavy, a well-crafted UX mock always took my team to the next level, took myself to the next level of conversation with my stakeholders. I mean, if you think about it, at the end of the day, it's kind of like a startup pitch deck. If it's a startup pitch deck filled with slides of text, it could be probably really boring. It's amazing how visual storytelling brings a business case to life. That's precisely why working with the UX team at the product ideation and prioritization stage is so important to bring Northstar vision to life, getting the stakeholders buy-in. Yeah, so today, to summarize today's webinar, UX product managers define user problems with designers to craft effective, define users' problem and translate user needs into a clear written requirement for the UX team to craft an effective UX solutions. Product managers, as a bridge between product development and user experience, should and can proactively identify and mitigate constraints impacting these UX design. And product managers should be thinking about two things. One is sort of visualizing the long-term vision of the product through UX, as well as executing short-term priorities by finding the right MVPs and persuading it that way. Thank you again for Product School for inviting me to speak and share my first-hand experience on the role of UX product managers and our impact. And I hope to stay connected with everyone via LinkedIn. Thank you so much.